The gentle breeze of San Francisco blew through the windows of Dr. Mark Thompson's office, carrying with it the characteristic aroma of the sea. It was an autumn afternoon, and the renowned sexologist thoughtfully observed the stack of medical records on his desk, each containing unique stories of couples seeking to rekindle the flame of love in their lives. After 15 years dedicated to sexual medicine, he had noticed a pattern that intrigued him deeply. "It's fascinating how we still maintain so many taboos about intimacy in old age," he commented to his colleague, Dr. Sarah Evans, who was sitting across from him during one of their frequent interdisciplinary meetings. The psychologist specializing in relationships adjusted her delicate framed glasses and smiled, sharing the same perception. "You know, Mark, in recent months I've noticed a significant increase in mature couples seeking help. They haven't lost desire, as many think. In fact, they've lost the confidence to express their feelings," Sarah replied, leafing through her meticulously organized notes. The office, decorated with soft tones and warm lighting, was a daily witness to love stories that had been developing for decades. The walls, adorned with diplomas and international certificates, told the story of both professionals' dedication to relationship health. "We need to do something about this," Mark declared, rising from his ergonomic chair and walking to the window. The afternoon sun painted the San Francisco sky with orange hues, reflecting on the waters of the bay. "What if we developed a special project? Something that could help these couples rediscover not just physical pleasure, but mainly emotional connection." Sarah's eyes sparkled with the idea. As a therapist, she had always believed in the transformative power of love and communication. "We can create a program that combines scientific knowledge with therapeutic practices, something that addresses both the physiological and emotional aspects of mature love," she suggested, already starting to make notes in her notebook. The project began to take shape that afternoon. Mark and Sarah decided to create a comprehensive program that would include individual consultations, couple therapy, and educational workshops. The approach would be holistic, treating body and mind as inseparable parts of the love experience. "We need to demystify the idea that love has an expiration date," Mark stated while organizing his thoughts. "I've seen so many cases of couples who, after decades together, discover a new way of loving each other. It's as if time adds layers of depth to the relationship instead of wearing it down," Sarah agreed, remembering several successful cases in her clinical practice. "The secret lies in helping them develop more open and honest communication. Many mature couples grew up in an era where feelings and desires were not openly discussed. We need to create a safe environment for this exploration." As the afternoon progressed, the two professionals outlined the first steps of the project. They decided to start with a small group of couples, selected from among their own patients, who showed interest in working not only on physical issues, but also on the emotional development of their relationships. "Let's call the project Love Never Grows Old," Sarah suggested, smiling with satisfaction. "Because it's not just about keeping intimate life active, but understanding that love can continue to grow and transform over the years." Mark nodded, feeling they were about to start something truly significant. As a doctor, he had always believed that his mission went beyond treating physical issues. It was about helping people live fully, at all stages of life. That night, as they closed the office, both professionals felt a renewed energy. They had taken the first step in creating a space where mature couples could rediscover not only physical pleasure, but mainly the joy of a love that continues to grow with the passing years. The first project meeting took place on a sunny Saturday morning. The chosen venue was a cozy conference room in downtown San Francisco, overlooking the bay. Dr. Mark and Dr. Sarah had carefully prepared every detail, from the arrangement of chairs in a circle to the soft lavender scent that filled the room. The first to arrive were Robert and Helen, married for 38 years. She, a retired teacher of 65, still maintained the same sparkle in her eyes that had caught Robert's attention decades ago. He, a 70-year-old engineer, walked with an upright posture and a shy smile on his lips. "Welcome," Dr. Sarah greeted them, noticing the couple's veiled nervousness. "You're the first to arrive. Please make yourselves comfortable." The couple settled in, and soon other participants began to arrive. In total, 5 couples had been selected for this first phase of the project. Dr. Mark carefully observed the different body languages before him. Some couples sat close together, others maintained a noticeable distance. Each small gesture told a story of years of coexistence, shared joys, and also accumulated silences. "Before we begin," Mark started, "I want to thank you all for your courage. Being here today demonstrates a deep commitment, not only to your relationships, but to your own personal growth." His voice conveyed the confidence of years of clinical experience, but also the human warmth necessary to create an environment of trust. Sarah complimented. "Many might think that after so many years together, there's nothing left to discover about your partner. But the truth is that each day brings a new opportunity for connection, for discovery." She made a significant pause, allowing her words to be absorbed. The first proposed activity was seemingly simple. Each person should share a happy memory from the early years of their relationship. Helen was the first to speak up, her voice initially hesitant, but gaining strength as she recalled, "I remember our first apartment. It was small, but Robert always brought flowers to brighten up the place. Over time, this routine was lost, but the memory of the scent of those flowers never left my mind." Robert, who had been keeping his eyes down until then, looked at his wife with surprise. "You still remember that?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "I thought they were silly gestures." Helen smiled, reaching out to touch his hand. "Doctor." Mark took advantage of the moment to explain how small gestures of affection are fundamental to maintaining emotional connection. Touch, gaze, small surprises. All of this releases important hormones like oxytocin, strengthening emotional bonds, he explained, translating scientific concepts into accessible language. As other couples shared their stories, the atmosphere in the room transformed. The initial nervousness gave way to nostalgic smiles and affectionate looks. Sarah observed attentively, making discreet notes about the dynamics that were revealing themselves. "What we're building here is a safe space for rediscovery," she explained. "In the coming weeks, we'll work on different aspects of relationships, communication, emotional and physical intimacy, self-care, and most importantly, the understanding that love is a journey of constant learning." Before ending the first meeting, each couple received a reconnection diary, a notebook specially developed for the project, where they could record their reflections, feelings, and discoveries throughout the process. "For next week," Mark instructed, "I'd like you to dedicate a few minutes daily to observing your partner. Not just looking, but truly seeing. Notice the small gestures, expressions, habits that may have gone unnoticed over time." At the end of the meeting, as the couples said goodbye, a subtle change in their postures was visible. Some walked closer together, others exchanged longer gazes. Robert and Helen were the last to leave, and before departing, he turned to Dr. Mark. "You know, Doctor, I think I'll stop by the florist on the way home." 2 weeks had passed since the first meeting, and Dr. Mark's office was prepared for a special session. The curtains filtered the afternoon sunlight, creating a cozy and intimate environment. Today, the focus would be on a fundamental topic: rediscovering touch and physical intimacy. "Touch is our first language of love," Dr. Sarah began, observing the couples comfortably seated in armchairs arranged in a semicircle. "From birth, it's through touch that we establish our first emotional connections. Over time, however, we may forget its importance." Dr. Mark complimented, his voice calm and professional. Often, mature couples face physical challenges natural to aging, and instead of seeking adaptations and new forms of pleasure, they end up distancing themselves. Today, we're going to talk about how we can transform these challenges into opportunities. Helen, who had become more participative in recent weeks, timidly raised her hand. "Doctor, I confess that sometimes I feel insecure. My body has changed so much over the years. Her voice trembled slightly, but Robert's understanding look beside her gave her courage to continue. How can I feel desirable again? Sarah smiled gently. Helen, your question touches on a crucial point. Society imposes unrealistic standards of beauty and youth on us. But true sensuality comes from self-acceptance and self-love. She paused significantly before continuing. Shall we do a practical exercise? With the group's consent, Sarah and Mark introduced a series of therapeutic activities focused on sensory reconnection. The first involved a simple mindfulness exercise. Couples were instructed to hold each other's hands, focusing only on the sensations of touch. Close your eyes, Sarah instructed. Feel the temperature, the texture, every line on your partner's palm. These hands carry stories of work, of care, of love. Each mark tells a part of the journey you've shared. The silence in the room was punctuated only by the soft sound of the participants' breathing. Some couples had tears in their eyes, others smiled softly. The experience was awakening memories and sensations long dormant. Dr. Mark took the opportunity to address important physiological aspects. With aging, our body undergoes natural changes. Blood circulation may decrease, hormone levels change, and sensitivity may shift. But this doesn't mean the end of intimacy, just that we need to rediscover new paths to pleasure. He then presented information about adaptations and alternatives for a healthy, intimate life in maturity. He spoke about the importance of maintaining cardiovascular health, the benefits of specific exercises for the pelvic floor, and how certain medications can affect sexual response. The secret is not to rush, Sarah emphasized. Intimacy and maturity is like a fine wine. It needs time to develop its best flavors. Each touch, each caress, can be a new discovery when we allow ourselves to be truly present in the moment. During the session, couples were encouraged to share their experiences and doubts. One of the participants, Charles, revealed how the program was helping him and his wife, Anna. We started having moments dedicated just to hugging, without expectations. It's surprising how something so simple can make such a difference. Anna added, her cheeks slightly flushed. We rediscovered the pleasure of sleeping holding hands. Sometimes that's all it is. Being present, connected. Other times this small gesture leads us to more intimate moments, but without that pressure we felt before. At the end of the meeting, Dr. Mark distributed a practical guide with suggestions for intimacy exercises to be practiced at home. Remember, he emphasized, there are no rigid rules when it comes to expressing love. Each couple must find their own rhythm, their own forms of connection. Sarah added a final reflection. Touch has the power to heal, to comfort, to bring us closer. When we allow ourselves to explore this language with openness and without judgment, we discover that love can be expressed in infinitely different ways. The couples left that session with a different sparkle in their eyes. Helen and Robert, in particular, walked hand in hand, their fingers intertwined with a renewed intimacy that spoke louder than words. The fourth meeting of the project coincided with a rainy afternoon in San Francisco. The sound of rain against the windows created an even more intimate atmosphere in the meeting room, where Dr. Mark and Dr. Sarah prepared to address one of the most challenging aspects of long relationships, emotional communication. Today, Sarah began, we're going to talk about something that might seem simple, but often becomes more difficult as the years go by, expressing our deepest feelings. She observed how some participants shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Many of us grew up in a time where showing vulnerability was seen as weakness. Dr. Mark added, science shows us that emotional intimacy is directly linked to physical health. When we repress our feelings, our body responds with muscle tension, hormonal changes, and even impact on sexual function. Robert, who had become more participative in recent weeks, raised his hand. Sometimes I feel like I know exactly what I want to say, but the words just don't come out. It's as if there's a blockage. Helen, beside him, nodded in recognition. Sarah took the moment to introduce a new therapeutic tool: dialogue cards. Each couple received a set of cards with incomplete sentences that should be filled in and shared with their partner. There's no right or wrong answer, she explained. The goal is to create a safe space to express feelings that may have never been verbalized. The sentences were seemingly simple. When I'm with you, I feel. Something I admire about you is. I'm afraid of. I miss when we. But as couples began to work with them, deep emotions surfaced. Anna, Charles's wife, was the first to share. When I'm with you, I feel safe to be who I really am. Her voice choked slightly. Even after so many years, you still look at me as if I were the same young woman you fell in love with. Charles, usually more reserved, surprised everyone with his response. I'm afraid I haven't shown enough how much you mean to me all these years. Sometimes I think of all the times I should have said, I love you, and didn't. Dr. Mark carefully observed the interactions, noticing how the couple's body language changed during the exercise. Notice how the simple act of verbalizing feelings alters our posture, our breathing, our connection with the other, he commented. This happens because our brain releases specific neurotransmitters during moments of deep emotional connection. The afternoon progressed, and each couple had their own significant revelation. Helen shared how she still felt butterflies in her stomach when Robert sang to her, even though it hadn't happened in years. Robert moved, promised right there to resume this forgotten habit. What we're seeing here, Sarah explained, is the power of emotional vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be truly seen by the other, we create space for a deeper and more authentic love. Before ending the session, Dr. Mark introduced a new element to the program: the daily connection moment. Establish a specific time, even if it's just 15 minutes, for a genuine dialogue. Turn off the TV, put away your phones, and simply be present for each other. Sarah added, and remember, communication is not just verbal. An attentive look, a gentle touch, true listening, all of this is part of the dialogue of love. At the end of the meeting, the couples received a new set of cards to practice at home. Use these moments not just to speak, Mark advised, but mainly to rediscover the pleasure of really listening to each other. The rain was still falling outside, but inside the room, something had changed. The couples said goodbye with longer hugs, deeper looks, and smiles that carried promises of conversations yet to come. The Love Never Grows Old project was reaching its final phase, and Dr. Mark decided to organize something special for the penultimate meeting. With Dr. Sarah's help, he transformed the usual meeting space into a festive environment, with soft music in the background and small tables decorated with fresh flowers. Today, he announced to the arriving couples, surprised by the change in the environment, we're going to celebrate all the discoveries and reconnections that have happened over these weeks. His smile reflected the satisfaction of seeing how each couple had blossomed during the program. Sarah complimented, in the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about challenges, fears, and overcoming. Today, we want to focus on the victories, on the small and big transformations that each of you has experienced. She gestured towards the prepared tables. That's why we organized a special moment of celebration. The couples were invited to make themselves comfortable, and soon noticed that on each table there was an envelope with instructions for a special activity. Inside these envelopes, Mark explained, you'll find cards with questions about the positive changes you've observed in your relationship since the beginning of the project. Helen and Robert were the first to open their envelope. Helen read aloud, share a new discovery about your partner that positively surprised you during these weeks. She smiled, looking lovingly at Robert. I discovered that you still remember the lyrics to all those old songs you used to sing to me. And when you started singing again last week, I realized that your love for me has never changed. It has only transformed. Robert, with teary eyes, added, and I discovered that you still blush when I sing, even after all this time. The couple exchanged a complicit look, their hands naturally finding each other on the table. Anna and Charles shared their own discoveries. I learned that it's never too late to develop new forms of intimacy, said Anna, her voice carrying a confidence that wasn't present at the beginning of the program. Our physical connection may have changed, but we've discovered deeper forms of pleasure and affection. Dr. Mark took the moment for a professional explanation. What Anna mentions is fundamental. Mature intimacy has its own characteristics and beauties. It's not less intense than young passion. It's just different, richer in nuances and meanings. Sarah added, and most importantly, you've learned to communicate your needs and desires more openly and honestly. She observed how the couples now sat closer, with a natural and comfortable intimacy. True intimacy begins with emotional vulnerability. During the afternoon, other exercises were proposed. The couples danced together, recalling special moments from their history. They shared plans for the future, demonstrating that mature love is not stuck in the past, but continues to grow and renew itself. Observe how your bodies naturally respond to each other now. Mark guided during the dance. This synchronicity is the result of the emotional reconnection you've cultivated. The body and heart are intrinsically linked. A particularly touching moment occurred when each couple was invited to renew their vows of love, not in a traditional way, but through personal and meaningful promises for the current moment in their lives. I promise to keep discovering new ways to love you, Robert declared to Hannah, and I promise to never take our love for granted, but to nurture it every day. Hannah responded with her own promise. I promise to keep my heart open to the surprises you still have to show me, and to the new adventures we can experience together. At the end of the afternoon, Dr. Mark and Dr. Catherine distributed small leather-bound journals, a gift for each couple. These are your new, mature love diaries, Catherine explained. A space for you to continue recording your discoveries, your special moments, and your dreams for the future. Because this journey doesn't end here, Mark added. What you've learned is just the beginning. Mature love is an ongoing adventure of discoveries and rediscoveries. The couples left that meeting with a new light in their eyes. It wasn't just the glow of renewed passion, but the deeper and more enduring glow of love that had matured and transformed into something even more precious. The final meeting of the project took place on an especially bright morning in San Francisco. Dr. Mark arrived early at the office, reflecting on the transformative journey he had shared with the couples over the past few weeks. Dr. Catherine was already waiting for him, organizing the final presentations and participation certificates. It's amazing how they've blossomed, isn't it? Catherine commented as she adjusted the last decorations in the room. Each couple found their own way to reconnect. Mark nodded, recalling the memorable moments of the program. You know, when we started this project, our goal was to demystify the taboos about love and intimacy and maturity, but we ended up witnessing something much greater, a true revolution in the way these couples view their own love. The participants began to arrive, and the change in each of them was visible. Hannah and Robert entered hand in hand, their bodies naturally inclined towards each other, sharing knowing smiles. Anna and Charles arrived soon after, bringing a bouquet of flowers for the team, a gesture that symbolized the blossoming of their own relationship. Before we begin our last session, Catherine began, I'd like each couple to share a significant transformation they experienced during this process. Anna was the first to speak up. I learned that intimacy isn't just about the physical. It's about being truly present for each other, about sharing fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Charles, beside her, gently squeezed her hand in agreement. Hannah shared her own reflection. We discovered that each phase of love has its own beauty. We don't need to compete with who we were 30 years ago. We can celebrate who we are today. Robert added, and most importantly, we learned that we still have so much to discover about each other. Dr. Mark seized the moment for a final professional explanation. What you're describing is exactly what science shows us. Mature love activates brain areas associated not only with pleasure, but also with deep empathy and emotional connection. It's a love that integrates body, mind, and spirit. Catherine then presented a surprise, a video compiling special moments from the program, photographs from the meetings, and testimonials that had been recorded over the weeks. The images showed subtle but profound transformations, more open smiles, more connected gazes, more natural and frequent touches. This project may be ending, she said, but your journey is just beginning. Each day is a new opportunity to practice what we've learned here, the art of loving consciously. Mark then revealed the last activity of the program. Each couple received a small box containing 2 simple rings. These are not traditional wedding bands, he explained. They are symbols of the commitment you make today, the commitment to continue growing together, to keep alive the flame of mutual discovery. The couples were invited to exchange the rings, not with formal vows, but with personal promises whispered to each other, intimate moments that belonged only to them. Mature love, Catherine concluded, is like a well-tended garden. It needs constant attention, but rewards with increasingly beautiful flowers as time passes. Before closing, Dr. Mark shared a final reflection. You are living proof that love not only survives time, it strengthens, deepens, and reinvents itself. Each wrinkle, each gray hair, each shared memory is part of this love story that continues to be written. The couples said goodbye with warm hugs and misty eyes. Hannah and Robert were the last to leave, and before departing, Hannah turned to the professionals. You helped us rediscover not just love for each other, but love for ourselves. And that's the greatest gift we could receive. When the last couple left, Mark and Catherine remained silent for a moment, absorbing the significance of everything they had witnessed. The office, now empty, held memories of profound transformations and inspiring new beginnings. I think we did it, Catherine smiled. We showed that love really never ages. Mark agreed, looking out the window at the San Francisco Bay. No, it doesn't age. It just transforms into something even more extraordinary. As they stood there, reflecting on the journey they had facilitated, both Mark and Catherine felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had set out to change perceptions about love in later life. But in the process, they had witnessed the power of human connection and the endless capacity for growth and renewal. You know, Mark said, turning to Catherine, I think we've learned just as much from them as they have from us. Catherine nodded, her eyes bright with emotion. Absolutely. Each couple's journey was unique, but they all shared one common thread: the courage to be vulnerable and to keep growing, no matter their age. They began to tidy up the room, collecting the materials from the last session. As they worked, they discussed the possibility of expanding the program, perhaps writing a book about their experiences or offering workshops to other professionals in the field. Think about it, Mark mused. If we could train other therapists and doctors in this approach, we could help so many more couples rediscover the joy in their relationships, Catherine agreed enthusiastically. And not just couples. I think this approach could be adapted for individuals too. After all, self-love is the foundation for all other forms of love. As they finished cleaning up, they decided to take a walk along the bay, the fresh sea breeze invigorating them as they continued their discussion. The success of the program had opened up new possibilities, and both felt energized by the potential impact they could have. You know what struck me the most? Mark said as they walked. It was how each couple's love story was so unique, yet they all shared common challenges and triumphs. It really highlighted how universal the experience of love is, regardless of age or background. Catherine nodded in agreement. And how the simplest things often made the biggest difference. A touch, a kind word, a moment of genuine listening. These were the real game changers for most of our couples. As they watched the sun begin to set over the bay, casting a golden glow across the water, they felt a sense of gratitude for the work they had done and excitement for what lay ahead. The Love Never Ages project might have come to an end, but its impact would continue to ripple outward, touching lives and relationships far beyond the confines of their office. Here's to love in all its forms, Mark said, raising an imaginary toast. And to the endless possibilities of the human heart, Catherine added with a smile. As they turned to head back, both felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had set out to help others rediscover love, but in the process, they had reaffirmed their own passion for their work and the profound impact it could have on people's lives. The Love Never Ages project was over, but its spirit would live, on in the lives it had touched, and in the continued work of Dr. Mark and Dr. Catherine. As they walked back to their office, already brainstorming ideas for their next endeavor, they knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their mission to help people find and nurture love at every stage of life.